Alrighty, here we go for another adventure on the path of Destinies.
The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong, but he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Renato. And also, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lupino had betrayed the rebellion. But could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens? Every child knew about the Sky Ripper. The Transcendent Emperor had buried its pieces deep. And then, this Emperor's horrific sacrifices had brought it back to the surface. Renato wasn't exactly sure how to use the legendary weapon. But surely, there must be some way to do it without provoking another catastrophe. Had he, somehow, summoned the long-lost components of the legendary weapon out of the deep places of the Earth? It was more than Renato could fathom. But if he could find a legendary weapon, he would use it.
The plan is to get the two pieces, and then choose the other thing instead of going to the scientists. Which I think was just like run into battle and use it. Which sounds even worse than what I did do before. But we shall see how that goes.
As he set foot on the island, Renato couldn't help feeling a bit curious. Was Lupino still waiting to be rescued? No. He was probably drinking champagne with the ravens. Did ravens drink champagne? Did rabbits? Renato felt oddly thirsty, come to think of it. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Renato never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it?
Once, Renato had been to a dungeon where all the chests were locked. It was awful.
Say goodnight, Gracie, said Renato, wondering who Gracie was.
You know what I hate about you guys? everything.
Oh yeah, baby! That's some good shit.
There had to be a way to use the Sky Ripper without causing a catastrophe. Why? Maybe it's always dangerous, he imagined Zenobia saying. Always the voice of reason, that one. Well, there had to be a way to use the Sky Ripper because not being able to use it was boring. So there.
This is stupid. How about, you know, there has to be a way to use it just because it's been used before.
It was time for a little exploration.
Wasn't making a dent in those shields.
Yay. Fuck you.
Something useful in these things, didn't there?
Yes, there has to be. There we go.
These things could really use a hand.
Shut up. Fuck you. See, they shouldn't be able to attack you at the same time. Multiples of them attack you at the same time, there's nothing you can do.
Ah, a puzzle. Renato loved puzzles. Except when he couldn't figure them out.
On
Yeah.
the other hand, if there was a puzzle, it was probably meant to keep people away from something good. He wished there were more pylons he could use the hook on. Really needed to construct additional pylons.
Oh, God! Oh, strangle me, please. So bad. So fucking bad. Oh. That was weird.
Here, fishy!
It's not what I want to do at all. Fuck you! Stuck in a goddamn animation and they hit me from behind.
Renato remembered when he'd first
There we
stolen
go.
one of these. Good times.
Now, if I've got like 30% damage resist, that's gonna be very helpful. Even 20% isn't bad. I think it starts out at 20, doesn't it, for the resist?
There it was. Skyripper's armature. The stuff that dreams are made of. Engineers' dreams, anyway.
The device was intricate. No one alive had the skill to make a thing like it. How was it part of a weapon at all? He'd have to ask a scientist. But first, he'd get the second piece. Skyripper had a heart. A core that had come to rest on the next island. Well, there was another island he could reach. Zenobia had just invaded it with her father's Raven battalions. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get this armature, was it? He didn't need to hurry to face her. She would find him.
I'll do her in my next
It was a
run.
no-brainer. He'd sacrificed his old friend Lapino to get the armature. And the armature was useless by itself, only a series of coils and wheels. War demanded sacrifices, and he would make more before the end. He would have to choose the greatest good, no matter how much it cost him. Zenobia. Well, he would see her sooner or later, across a battlefield or a sword's point before all this was over. He was sure of that. The power was in the core. Obviously, he had to get the core.
Really think they could have changed some of that with the unlocks that I have so far to say, oh hey, you know, I haven't really sacrificed much since he's a backstabbing dick anyway. But
He
dedicating
looked
this
up at
much
the
time
old
to
trees
it
around
is a thing.
him. They were so big and so old. They'd been there before he was born, and they'd be there after he'd passed into legend. Was he confronting his own unimportance? What had got into him? He was no philosopher. Anyway, who cares? He was plenty important. He was a hero, and soon he'd prove it.
Anyways, and then I'll have all my weapons maxed. Was cool. Dear Zenobia, the director of the Academy has told me how much he was impressed by your academic performance and leadership. Somehow, I doubt this was a session of bootlicking. I have seen plenty of those. That old toad is sincere. I am proud of you, my daughter. You will make a fine empress one day. On my end, great news. Professor Calaveras has been studying the Nexus. He has made a bold observation. That toad is a true genius. You know how that island is unique, constantly changing, new crystalline formations appearing, island figments merging, splitting, slowly drifting, held together by some invisible threads? Professor Calaveras is convinced that those changes are not random, but rather indicative of the living nature of the islands. He has observed that certain changes on the Nexus follow, or sometimes precede, a turbulence on another island. Landslide, quake, flood, the Nexus seems to resonate with those events. Maybe the islands are a hive mind, and the Nexus is the brain. In any case, I am funding a permanent scientific observation on the Nexus. I will attract the Empire's greatest minds with Professor Calaveras at the helm. I anticipate a great age of enlightenment for the Empire. With love, Father. Psychopath.
Those sheaves were really very well made.
Can we get around this once? Can I please use the fucking hook? Why do I keep getting stuck into animations? For fuck's sake!
This one looked familiar. Had he lost this one in a card game? Welcome back, he thought.
There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time.
Had that door been opened before?
It's not turning. I'm gonna instantly... not even on the platform anymore, what the hell? I'm gonna get hit the instant I go over there.
Didn't your mother tell you it's rude to stare? Snapped Renato, a little smug.
You almost never saw wild gogglers together like this. The toads had to train them not to peck each other to death. So these had to be Imperial gogglers. That meant ravens were up ahead.
So that was an assload of damage I just took. That's completely unavoidable.
You couldn't hack this kind of firewall. You had to warm it up to you.
There were fewer and fewer trees. There were only these huge crystalline growths. Had those been here before? He no longer heard birds except for the feverish cawing of the ravens when they attacked. He couldn't smell the small animals of the forest. The mice and rabbits. Where had they gone? And he was getting hungry too. This was an unhealthy place to be.
Stay away from the other guy's sword, you know? Of course there was a puzzle. You couldn't expect the Transcendent Emperor to bury a god's eye in a leather sack where anyone could pick it up. This couldn't be good for global warming.
Okay, that was rather random. Ow, ow, ow. Fire bad. So close. What am I going to be getting next? Stop. It's kind of lame. It's not very good either. Probably have to get that. Then get... Stop doing that. And get health. Sword energy would be nice. Problem with just having more maximums means when I get low, it's just that much farther from maximum.
newly remembered knowledge. He needed to focus.
Oh, really? Do that to me? Distance.
The 20-sided core made him feel physically sick. Once he had sneaked into a temple of the dark arts, and he hadn't liked what he smelt and saw there. This felt like that. As quick as he could, he wrangled the icosahedron into the armature. The wheels began to spin, then glow. The sick feeling quickly spun away. Now he only felt sad. He had lost good friends for this war apparatus.
Maybe Lapino wasn't such a good friend. Yeah, that made him feel better. He carried his prize back to the Farfarer.
Now, he had to make his next move. There was a key Imperial outpost on the Nexus. If this really was some sort of super weapon, he could use it to wreak havoc on the enemy. And if it wasn't, well, better to know that before the final battle. But maybe he should show it to some scientists first. There was an observatory on the Nexus. Maybe he should go there before he fired it. Renato had never been much of a student. At Swordfu School, he'd never read the books, just looked at the pictures. And Zenobia. But weapons he understood. His gut told him that the Sky Ripper would work great. He would use it to take out the Imperial outpost. And what's the worst that could happen? The thing wouldn't work, and then he'd take it to the scientists.
Renato actually could think of a few things that were worse. But he would make sure they didn't happen this time. Right?
Exactly.
No, I can think of something bad that could happen. I could destroy the fucking universe. But you know, this is only my second time trying it. I can't hit the 1 out of 128 again, can I?
As he set out down the path, Renato wondered why the parts of the Sky Ripper had only surfaced now, thousands of years after the Transcendent Emperor had discarded it. This Emperor, Isengrim III, had performed terrible, bloodthirsty rituals to invoke the lost gods. Perhaps that was bringing up lost artifacts. How perfect, then, that the Sky Ripper would reappear to be his destruction.
And hopefully this time, just his destruction.
This is quite the view, he thought.
No treasure chest. Y'all gonna get a whooping.
was tired of slaughtering ravens. Maybe it was time to test out the new weapon. He turned a knob on the Sky Ripper. It made strange, mechanical noises. The wheels spun faster. It began to hum.
The Sky Ripper was following his every step. At least it acknowledged him as the master. But there was no trigger. How was he supposed to fire it? Fire, he said. Nothing happened. Well, maybe it just needed to warm up. After all, it hadn't been fired in thousands of years.
You got it to work before, genius. Probably only works when you desperately
had
need
been
it.
built by the Transcendent Emperor. To figure it out, he just had to think like a legendary demigod. That actually wasn't as helpful as it sounded.
How close am I? 68 out of 100. Oh, jeez! Oh, burn, baby! Pissing me off.
The Sky Ripper was making a whining noise now, and its wheels were spinning so fast he could no longer see them.
Bernardo had a thought. Please? He asked. The Sky Ripper began to glow. Boom! The outpost burst into flame.
Ravens flapped out screaming, wings on fire. The base was his. The far speaker toad came hopping out. "Bernardo!" it croaked, sounding like a toad version of Zenobia. "Don't use the Sky Ripper. It will destroy the world." "Yeah, sure it will," cracked Bernardo. "Pull the other one." "If you don't trust me, go see Calaveras. He'll tell you the same thing." Oh, she would say that. That sounded sensible. Why did she always have to sound sensible all the time? Oh, it was infuriating.
Of course she would say that. He was supposed to hurry and bring the Sky Ripper to the council so the rebels could actually win the war. But what if she was right?
Damn it. Just this once, he would not let Zenobia get into his head with her logic and her wisdom and her appeals to reason. He was a fox. He'd go with his instincts, and it would all work out like it always did. Oh, he was sounding like a reckless idiot, even to himself. But if there was one thing Renato could never bring himself to do, it was turn back on a decision he'd made. Imperials were flapping and cawing all around the ruins. They must be panicking with rumors flying of the superweapon. Maybe they hoped to find and destroy the base before he could put the Sky Ripper into action. The Sky Ripper was whining and heating up. It would be time to use that energy soon.
Haven't you always wanted to do that?
awesome.
You're the one about the Raven one, talking to her son. You don't write. You don't call. Get it? Call? I just made that up.
He wondered if the Council knew he destroyed the outpost. He hoped so. He was excited. With his superweapon, they could actually win their battle with the Imperial fleet.
Maybe.
What was Zenobia talking about? This was a fantastic weapon. Ravens burst into flames with just a touch of its killer beam. He was tempted to leave it on all the time, but he didn't want to accidentally slice off some council toad's head or tongue. She'd been trying to distract him. Well, this time, no one was going to distract him.
Really?
Precision, ferocity. The device was a woman. He'd buy it a drink.
Well, the eyes have had it. Long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. It was on fire. So far, so good.
This was the craziest weapon ever used. Or not. What's behind door number 2?
Wow.
As he headed towards the council chamber, Renato felt everyone watching him.
You've saved the rebellion, said the council speaker. Frankly, we were afraid you'd turn aside to save that idiot Lapino.
Not bloody likely, Renato told them, feeling he was maybe being a bit harsh on the poor mad rabbit.
If you never make sacrifices, he said, you're probably not doing the right thing. The speaker nodded. Are you ready to lead the charge? Let's roll, he said, with grim satisfaction. Renato set sail for the fleet. The Sky Ripper had lost its wine. It was humming now, as if it had taken some time to seat properly. He had always been irresponsible. This time, he'd done the right thing, made the hard decisions. He was a real hero. He hadn't let himself be distracted by old friends or old lovers turned enemies. Finally, he could be proud of himself.
He calls himself a hero, or at least the narrator narrates that he thinks of himself as a hero a lot. It's kind of like, you're not really a hero until you do the heroic stuff, which so far just isn't really happening all that much.
He was ready. So was Sky Ripper. The Sky Ripper had a will of its own. It picked out its own targets and set them on fire.
This was going to be a short battle. He would set the ships on fire if he didn't need them to get to the Emperor. And he wondered if he'd see Zenobia, or if she'd flee. Wouldn't she be proud of him? At least, a bit of respect. He'd become an all-conquering hero.
Heroes don't really conquer, though.
He hadn't noticed that path before.
Yeah, I have. That's not helpful.
There was a parchment on a signpost. It was from her.
Every time you fire, you risk the destruction of the universe. That's insane. We surrender.
He'd done it.
Wow.
He played chicken with Zenobia and won. He could hear the horns blaring the retreat. She was wiser than he was, that was for sure. But wisdom didn't win battles.
With this device, he could travel at night, so long as there were ravens to set on fire.
What did you do if one of these platforms stalled?
You probably get nowhere fast. to the big one. I can't imagine this is gonna end well, but...
And there was Zenobia, wearing the white robes of surrender. She came and kneeled before him. Why didn't you listen to me? I was trying to save you too. You're the enemy, he said. I was never your enemy, Renato.
And he realized, not for the first time, how much she loved him.
Then she spoke a terrible word and made a gesture with her hand. She stopped moving, covered in frost, and he wondered why she'd frozen
this is not
herself.
gonna end well.
Then the Sky Ripper froze, and then, for a moment, he felt very cold and discovered that he couldn't move. The next thing he knew, the sun was a giant, monstrously red. It took up half the sky, and he was in a parched red desert. And then he was on fire. He should go back to some of the choices he'd faced before. Maybe there were new paths that had opened up, like those doors he was opening up all over the map that took him to new treasures and around his enemies. And he hadn't learned anything new this time. He'd done the same thing twice, yet expected a different outcome.
So I'm thinking the last piece of the unlock is going to be the Iblis Stone.
The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again, faster than before, and he fell.